All right, here we go. So I'm starting over, guys. So tragedy of the commons. Y'all said the best way. Alicia, can you say it again? Best way to combat this?
I'll limit how much resources people take.
Good. So you put a limit on how much each person can take. So clear cutting. So clear cutting is just where they come into an area. We see this all around here. They come into an area and they just cut all the trees down in an area. And so that can lead to the main issues that it leads to is increased sediment in the nearby rivers because the erosion is allowing that dirt to just flow into the river. So this first our main issue. And then evaporation of water from the soil increases. This is also a main issue. So the first two stars are the main issues because the trees aren't there to shade the ground, and so the sun is hitting the soil and causing the water to evaporate. And then obviously it's ugly and it takes a really long time to grow back. So ways to avoid this is just cutting down the highest value trees, like the old growth, like the big tall trees. You can cut those down and leave the smaller ones. And so that allows it to regrow. The thing we do not do is we do not cut them all down at one time. That is not sustainable at all. Do not cut them down all at the same time. So sustainable forestry, that's a lot of the same thing. There's not test questions on this, but it is important to know that they do the controlled burn so they can get the undergrowth down so the trees can grow faster. But that's not on the test. All right. So the Green Revolution was when they came up with new technologies. They were able to grow more food into less land. So the main focus of this one is it's going to, I'll write it down. All right, it requires more money. So it takes a lot of money to do the same thing, but they can feed way more people. And also, it required a lot of technology, and that wasn't available to everyone.
You said it wasn't available to everyone?
Yeah, it wasn't available to everyone. Like people who lived in like more rural areas, they couldn't always get a hold of that technology. So on this one, they're gonna have like a reading about it, and you're just gonna have to like state the claim from the reading about the Green Revolution. So even though we could grow more plants, there was still a rise in world hunger, and this ties back to when we did that population thing. So we had an increasing rate of population growth, so there's more people that we have to feed. Because there's more people, there was increasing poverty in those developing countries. And there was an unequal distribution of available food supplies. So like there might be way more food available, say in the United States than there is in a less developed country. Even though there's plenty of food in the world, it's not spread out in a way that everyone can be fed. And then this loss or decline in arable land, meaning there's more people living on the planet, so there's less land available to farm. So that is also an issue causing a rise in world hunger. And if y'all have questions, y'all stop me, okay? All right, so y'all did the irrigation methods yesterday, and these pictures look terrible, and I'm sorry. So the spray, they are just spraying water all over the place. We see that a lot. Like if you drive to Magnolia, y'all seen it? Just spraying water everywhere. All right, so this one, the drip method, it's also called the drop method. This one is preferable. This is the best one a lot of the time because it has the least amount of water lost to evaporation. They deliver it straight to the plant roots, so it's getting absorbed immediately. See how they have little like tubes that runs right along the roots of the plants. It's dropping the water right off, and it's not causing erosion. It's not getting lost. Okay. Then here, we're not gonna worry about that one, but the flood method, they used to just cover the entire crops with water, so they didn't have a lot of machinery. But this one causes a lot of surface erosion, and it leaves a lot of salt in the soil because what's happening is there's all this water, it evaporates and it leaves the salt in the soil, and it causes the soil to be really salty, which causes water loss in the plants. So this, bad. Don't like this one. All right, so pesticide issues. This is going to lead to natural selection. So right here, if you're an underliner, highlighter person, so they spray the pesticides and then some organisms would survive. Those survivors would be resistant and then they would have more babies. So there would be an increase in those resistant organisms, and so they had to come up with a new pesticide. So the pesticide, they call it a treadmill because they survive and they have to make a new one. So it's a constant cycle of having to create new pesticides, and often they become even more and more like dangerous to humans because they're trying to kill all those bugs. So what was a sustainable use of killing bugs? What was from the movie? What would they use? Other bugs, ducks, chickens.
Yeah, they had.
Why don't we think a lot of people use that method?
Because it costs extra.
It does cost extra money at first.
And then they have to take care of the animal.
Mm-hmm.
It's more work for them.
It's
And
way
then
more
like
work.
something will try to kill that animal, then gotta get something else.
Then they gotta go shoot the coyote.
Yeah.
It's a whole.
No, it's a whole thing. All right, so this picture, it's not too bad on yours, okay. So going back to our videos, which one of these animals contributed the most to greenhouse gases?
The beef.
The cow. So this one contributes the most to greenhouse gases.
I tried.
Yeah, but the cow is needed for the manure.
So for one, it's the largest, but what do cows do that the other animals don't do that produces a lot of methane? They fart. They fart a lot. So that's a large contributor to greenhouse gases. So my first AP environmental science class, their solution to this was to raise cows in domes and to trap that methane in the domes and to use that for another energy source. Wasn't a bad idea. Do what? Oh yeah, no, he'd have to gas mask all the time or whoa.
Also, wouldn't
Too many cow farts.
wouldn't the dome affect the cows?
Huh?
Wouldn't the
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Because they would be, even if it was like a really, really.
There'd have to be like a fan, you know, like the fans in bathrooms that pull like the steam up. It would have to be pretty well thought out, but it's the same class that also said that we should just have treadmills hooked up to generators to make electricity. Just like if you want to exercise and create electricity.
You need somebody on that all the time.
Oh, believe me, she had a plan.
She had a plan.
She had a plan.
I mean, that's too much work. At least she's trying. She's trying.
She's trying to save the world.
One treadmill at a time.
Yes. It was, her idea was kind of like a hamster wheel. You know, you just got these hamster wheels and, you know, people just hop on, hop off.
You want to power your house?
We better get some running. They do have those bikes that produce energy on a generator. She was just trying to do a grand scheme, higher level. All right, so as countries become more developed, what do they tend to start eating more of? Meat. So you need to make sure that you understand that. So as countries, I'll write it down. As countries become more developed, they eat more meat. So this is interesting to me because in America, if you've ever met a vegan, they like to talk about their being a vegan, and it costs a lot of money to not eat meat. But then these other countries, as they become more developed and they have more money, they see meat as a luxury item, so they eat more meat. So this is how it's difficult to keep up with the meat production because it's just, as America eats less meat, other countries eat more meat. So it's just, you're never gonna find a balance, unfortunately. All right, so this one is a little out of order. So there's nothing about fishing methods on the test. So I erased it from up here. And then we're gonna go to the aquaculture. So aquaculture is just where they raise fish. Instead of going out and fishing for them, they just raise them in these nets.
Well, I'm pretty sure you said something. Okay, the fishing method.
Skip that one.
Okay,
Go straight to aquaculture.
Okay, gotcha. We don't need to know nothing about the.
No. So they do these in lakes. They also do these in the ocean. They just have these nets. They raise the fish in the net. So it's efficient.
They also catch like turtles and stuff.
They don't do that as often in this version. Whenever they're doing like these fishing methods where they're doing the long lining and the bottom trawling, they catch all kinds of things like dolphins and turtles. But this one right here, so there's high profits because they're not having to use boats. They're not having to go, there's low fuel use because they're not having to go out and catch all the fish. But what happens is it takes a lot of water, space, and it also causes a large waste output. So this is important right here. This is a big disadvantage is because it raises, it drastically raises like the waste in the water around them, which can cause issues for the fish that just live there naturally around the
Just make big
Here, Ronnie.
nets.
Bigger nets.
Just make really, really big nets.
How is that going to stop the waste?
But it'll be more spread out, so the waste won't be as concentrated.
But what it's saying is like it's filtering out into the water around it. So instead of them like, yeah, you'd have to have like a.
I mean, like 100-foot net, like a football field size net.
Oh, they're already that big. They're huge. They're humongous.
Well,
They'd have to have some sort of filter between them and the ocean around them.
Yeah, they're not going to do that. In fact, how they're being raised anyway.
It would, because then it would trap it in there with them, and then you would be eating fish that just constantly lived in their own poop. And I don't want to eat that. I'm not about that life. All right, so the other issue is they're living really close to each other, and that makes them vulnerable to disease. Just like it would make them vulnerable to their own poop. So now, back to this one right here. That's just right above it. So these are some of the major international treaties. The one that we're going to focus on for this is the CITES. So Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora. This one is going to help with endangered species, but it's also going to help with overfishing. This is the one that regulates overfishing. They put limits on how much people can fish. So then the fish have time to reproduce. All right, so mining right here. Which one of these do you think has to do with coal mining?
Coal? What mining?
Coal.
Coal?
B?
It's
C.
B. It's B.
Wow.
So we have coal mining here. There's a lot of coal mining around Virginia, which is in that area. A lot of it.
You know what? There's a lot of mining of in Arkansas.
In Arkansas? Oil. And diamonds. All right, so with mining, there are costs that have to be thought of. So what are some things that cost money in mining?
Equipment.
So we have to pay for equipment,
The damage.
the damage. So damage, yeah. So damage or restoration to the land. What else do we think about in terms of money? Not necessarily costs, but with money. You do have to talk about taxes, think about taxes.
We gotta break down the.
What about your workers?
I didn't say that.
So the workers, but what else about the workers?
Their medical costs.
Yes, their medical costs.
Workers' comp.
Because
We know, cause like if I get hurt, someone had to pay up all
the people who do a lot of underground mining, their risks of like lung cancer, it's super high. You also have to think about, oh, you can't read that anymore. How much the value of the ore. Is it worth, the ore is like your chocolate chips. Is it even worth destroying this land? Am I gonna get enough money back? So you have to take that into account. Mhm. Well, it's a money that you have to think about. It's related to the monetary value. So right now we're having lots of issues about countries that other countries are in bed with because they're mining their valuable resources. Why don't we mine Antarctica? People don't really live there. Why don't we mine it? There's things there.
Ice.
It is ice.
It's inconvenient. It's gonna
It
cost
is.
more.
It's very inconvenient.
It's gonna cost more to get to the ice first.
Political reasons.
Political reasons. It's actually environmental reasons.
You got all that political.
Do it. We can't fix it, yes. So their environment is very fragile and it's vulnerable to disturbances. So if we were to just come on in and mine it, it would just completely destroy their very sensitive ecosystem. So
We care enough.
we care just enough. And I think it's like, it's agreed upon by the world that we don't do that in Antarctica. It's like the one thing we can agree on.
It's like, they don't big stuff, they gotta make the stuff.
Right. So ecological footprint, guys. So this is basically how much land and water is required to sustain your lifestyle. Okay, so United States obviously has a humongous footprint compared to like India or Rwanda. Why do we think our footprint is so much larger than these other places? We do use way more fossil fuels. So let's think of some things, excuse me. Excuse me. Let's think of some things we can use to lower a footprint. So lower a footprint. What can we do? Did you say kill the cows? So eat less meat?
I think that's what that
We're not gonna kill the cows. Eat less meat.
It's not gonna fix the issue. They're still gonna eat the
Have a
meat.
cohabitable ecosystem of an environment where both the plants and the people.
Work together.
They work together in harmony. Yes.
That's gonna take a long time though.
But instead of just like, cutting down.
What can the average person do?
Like be more
Conscious with our money choices, spending our money. So like spend less money. All right, spend less money on goods and services.
Take it, take the bus or take
Yes.
the Uber. Like, if you're gonna Uber, don't take one car for yourself. Everybody get in the big car, then most of one person.
So that is one thing. People in urban areas often have a lower footprint than people like us in more rural areas because they have access. They can walk to their jobs, they have access to public transportation, whereas here everybody drives their own car. So walking.
I know. We don't
What? We don't have sidewalks. Every single day, I'm scared I'm gonna hit a student walking in the middle of the road. It's scary. And then the little kids on the bikes like fall over.
They're just bonus
Like
points.
build a sidewalk.
They're just, don't worry, they're just bonus points.
It's like there's sidewalks until you hit close to the admin building, and then it's just have fun, good luck. Yeah. It's like they're taking care of them, but they're not taking care of us those high school kids.
The bridge to get to my house, which is over past Arkansas Middle.
Oh.
All I'm saying is, I'll get it.
All right. So urbanization. So living in natural versus urban areas. So there are some perks, like they can walk more and they have more access to like healthier foods and things, but there are some disadvantages. So evaporation. Here we have 40% evaporation, and here we have 30% evaporation, right? Because what's happening to the water here? It's not evaporating. Where's it going?
Being used.
Oh no, it's flooding. So our evaporation is going to go down. You need to know this. Evaporation is going to go down. Runoff is going to go up. Have you ever gone to a big city and seen like the water just carrying the trash down the road? That's a problem. And then infiltration, this is like water seeping into the groundwater, that's gonna go down, which is not good. You want more water soaking into the ground. So thinking about a bigger city, what is causing that water to not be able to soak into the ground?
They got concrete.
Concrete. They got concrete in streets everywhere. So how could they help that?
Using dirt.
Using dirt, okay. So there are permeable materials. Y'all know permeable means it can get through it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So they could use permeable materials.
Destroy all the buildings and make them all.
Yeah.
Make some parks.
Make some parks
Make them apartments.
for roads and sidewalks.
It's gonna change the United States to just like
Well, that would.
rocks. This is gonna be our guess.
Yeah, tree, huge tower.
Everything's pretty much.
This looks terrible.
Away from all the cities.
Let me just write this on.
If you do it,
So have y'all seen where they have, some places have like bricks and then like grass. and
Is that
brick
for the
grass.
city?
Hmm?
That side right there?
Yeah, for the city. So that helps water be able to get down into the ground. There's also, like some tracks are made out of like that squishy rubber. It's not completely solid, and water can get down into that. Those are good options for these different streets and parking lots that allows water to get through it. Because at this point, the runoff goes into the sewers, which goes into the nearest waterway, which just causes a lot of pollution. It's bad. All right, so there's a math problem on the next one. So this is saving water. Well, save water. It's not a hard math problem. Okay, so we have a family of 5. There's 5 people, so I'm gonna underline that. And they recently replaced their 5-gallon per minute shower head with a water saving 2-gallon per minute shower head. Each member of the family averages 10 minutes in the shower per day.
Okay, so wait, that's all together.
They got the good water.
I'll show you how to work it out.
No, I'm saying like,
They were-
each person,
So when you turn on the sink.
Each person is gonna spend 10 minutes in the shower.
that's what I was saying, like 10 minutes?
You just got water hose with a shower.
It takes a good 30 minutes.
Oh my goodness.
Oh,
All right,
child.
in a 30-day period, how many fewer gallons of water will the family use with the new shower heads? So let's go. So we're gonna calculate the old one first. So there's 5 people. They're doing 5 gallons per minute, 10 minutes a day. Good grief. For 30 days. So if you do the math, you need to make sure you use all of your parentheses.
You just gotta multiply it.
Yes, and so then they're gonna use 7,500 gallons a month.
Please don't be wrong.
Okay.
They're saving
We're not there.
4,500.
So the new one,
That's what gets me. It's science.
5 people, 2 gallons, 10 minutes, 30 days. And this one's gonna be a multiple choice question, so you don't have to show your math with all the units. But if this were to be an FRQ, he would need to show you work with all the units. We're gonna get 3,000 gallons. So then you just subtract this from that, and they save 4,500 gallons a month.
Because they don't be taking 30-minute showers.
First of all,
Shower for 30 minutes. Get out and just sit down. What you doing in the shower?
because like, why, like, it's not even that, like. I
Just
feel like
go
the
into your
shower-
room, turn on the rain sound effect on YouTube, and just sit in your bed.
Yeah.
You see, if it be raining sometimes, go catch some water in a bucket.
No, a good shower.
Exactly. What you doing?
In the
You
warm
sit down in the
shower.
tub underneath the water.
Listen,
Just
listen.
rock it.
Listen. A
Maybe.
good shower, that's 30 minutes.
No.
Give you time to have concerts, give you time to just let your body relax.
You
and
can
let
do
your
that after the
mind
shower.
And do your facial.
Showers to clean yourself.
Let me guess. I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna make you're
Exactly.
5 gallons per minute. I'm gonna say.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
let's
say,
calculate mahogamy's water use.
So you say 5 gallons per minute times 30 minutes times let's say for a month, 30 days. 4,500 is how much you use by yourself. In
You're
a
using
month.
more than that whole family.
You're using more than that.
Listen,
Family of 5.
y'all make me laugh because sometimes my showers be an hour. It depends on what I'm doing.
An hour.
Like that's what I'm saying.
You can take it outside the water.
Oh, good grief. My conditioner says sit for 5 to 10 minutes. I turn the water off. I'm trying to save the world.
I let them
Not
Like
mahogany.
mahogany.
It's exciting.
When we run out of water on this
I
planet,
think she one of them people that leave the sink on when she brushes her teeth.
probably. My husband's one of those people. It's a problem. I'll just go in there and just like flip the water off. You're like, what are you doing? You're using all the water. We have to pay for that.
You're the issue.
You're the problem. All right, so we're not going to test on that one. And your picture on this last one, I'm sorry, your picture looks like trash, and I'm very sorry. But this will be posted.
I like the circle one.
The circle one is beautiful. And what does the circle one, the contour farming, what does that help with?
It helps with water runoff.
Water runoff, yes. And it also helps with soil erosion.
I'm so smart.
You're so smart. Helps, oh, I should put, I'm going to erase all that. Helps with soil erosion. Oh, that's bad too. Okay, it's fine. Yes, because it lowers water runoff. Exactly like Tripp said. Very good. And it's gorgeous. All right. And the other one we're going to focus on is crop rotation. So crop rotation helps decrease the amount of fertilizer needed.
Honestly, to me, like any farming like situation, like all of that is beautiful because it's like, how did y'all even do things like that?
Doesn't it also help with soil because it makes the soil stronger because it's not the same?
Uh-huh.
I watched the video. I paid attention. I watched that Little Big Farm.
We know because you fell in love.
So a lot of the times what they'll do is they'll like grow corn and then they'll grow like soybeans because the soybeans helps pull nitrogen into the soil. And so then when they plant the corn there, then corn uses a lot of nitrogen in the soil. So then they don't have to use as much fertilizer because the soybeans actually pulled that into it. So if we use less fertilizer, then less fertilizer is getting like washed down into water sources, which can cause algae blooms and different things like that. All right. I don't like to lecture. It's not my favorite. Okay. And lastly, the FRQ that is going to be on there is you're going to need to refresh your mind on the energy and environmental impacts of eating meat versus eating plants.
Is it gonna be like the other one that was like 5 questions?
It's very similar to that one.
Environmental effect?
So for example, eating meat, they have to use energy to raise the cow, to transport the cow, to kill the cow, to transport the meat to the store. Whereas with the plants, they just have to grow it and transport it. They don't have to kill it and all of that.
Wait. So what's the question again that's going to be? Like the effect that...
The difference is between eating meat and plants. Also, land use wise, if you eat meat, you have to use land to grow the crops, to feed the meat, and to raise the meat. So it's twice as much land.